Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. We are going to paint this today using Daler Rowney Aquafine watercolors. I have a separate review video on these, but that video got really long, so I decided to break it up into two portions. So this part is going to be painting this fun little yummy pastry scene using the Daler Rowney Aquafine student grade watercolors. So I thought I would do a little demo, and since I'm on the dessert theme, dessert brain, I would do a like a little, I don't know, some sort of pastry. I'm a member over at Graphic Stock, so I'm just using one of their images. And I'm going to start by just kind of sketching in a plate. I'm working on Arches watercolor paper because I figure might as well work on the best stuff. I had a scrap of it right here, so I'm like, I might as well just work on that. So, you know, you'll definitely see the paint in its best light. And as I mentioned before, I bought these paints. I'm not, you know, sponsored or anything. So I got my plate. I'm gonna draw this little pastry here. I'm gonna put a raspberry on top. A couple mint leaves. Man, I'm hungry. Doesn't that look good? I don't even eat sweets usually, but boy, that looks awesome. I'm gonna put a leaf and a raspberry over here. And I'm just gonna get that little bit of plate detail, and I don't think I need to really sketch any more detail on there. Oh, I do like the wooden background that the reference photo's on, kind of like a rustic table, so I think I want to get that in there just a little bit. Just get some planks in there. Okay, I'm going to grab some other brushes because I don't want to just limit to the brush that's in here, although I did all my other little samples with just this round brush, but round brushes can, especially the synthetic ones, can lead to streaks, and I know that's something this paint is susceptible to, so I want to get some softer brushes. Okay, I'm going to start by wetting my background here. Oop, need to clean that brush a little bit better. Let's wet my background here. I was doing such little pieces before, I didn't have a really big big bucket of water, and I'm just wetting the table area here. And I am using a 3/4 inch Mimic, which is a faux Kolinsky. Hopefully I have my circle there drawn fairly accurately. And I'm going to grab some burnt umber. That's one of these single pigment colors. And just kind of get a little bit of a table shape in there. But another reason I wanted to review these is that a lot of people can find these paints. You know, if you're in the UK, I know you have a much higher chance of finding Daler Rowney or Cotman paints than other brands on the market. So I know my viewers are all over the world. And that way you can at least see this before you spend the money on it. And I really believe that you can paint no matter what you have for materials. I mean, you could paint with ketchup and mustard or food coloring or what have you. You don't have to go out and spend lots of money. But if you are going to spend some money, you know what you're buying. Now I'll say I paid $16 for this set. I don't think it was a ripoff at that price. That is a lot less than other student grade sets. I know like the Van Goghs would be much more for 18 colors. You know, so you have to consider that, and you know, you have to consider what else you have available. And some people really like this paint, so, and this is just the first day I've used it. One thing I'm going to do, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video, I'm going to spray paint the lid of this tin with just some cheap white spray paint, because that way I'll have a mixing surface right there. I think that even when I take these little cups out, I don't have a ton of mixing area, and I wish I had a little bit more mixing area. I'm going to grab a little bit, I'm actually going to take a little bit of this cerulean and add that into the table, because there is some cool light reflections on there, like daylight reflections, and the way it lights up the table, it gives it this blue cast. So I'm going to put that in. And this is a 3-color mix. This is it's weird because the old ultramarine that I had from a tube was PB29 as expected, and the new one is PB29, PB15, And this one is actually those two colors plus white, so it's kind of weird. But I can glaze over that with more colors. I'll have to be careful just because the glazing properties aren't the best with this, but I think we'll be all right. Now I'm going to just mix up some really pale cream colors. So I'm going to use yellow ochre and lots of white. Lots of water, I'm sorry. Water, not white. And I'm just going to kind of glaze my little pastry. Super lightly though. And if there are any white areas, I'm going to leave some little shiny areas that are just the white of the paper. And then on the plate, I'm going to see what happens if I do the, I'm going to do the yellow ochre and the cerulean. And then I'll throw a little burnt sienna. The burnt sienna is a weird mix. It's, you know what? That's giving me a lot of green. The burnt sienna is a weird mix. Let me do burnt umber and cerulean. Oh, that's a fairly nice gray. Yeah, I think I'll just use that. Maybe just a smidge more cerulean, a little more water. And I'm going to put some of that on the plate. This is a rough paper. It's what I had on my desk. Something that was kind of funny that I noticed about this paint, I was using it in my Wind Power sketchbook, is that I was noticing it almost wanted to repel certain on certain paper. It's like it didn't want to stick to the paper. It was very strange. Not exactly sure why. And the Prussian blue would leave all these little white, like you'd see all these little white spots just kind of appear, like, and you'd see the paint pop almost like it had bubbles, like it was carbonated paint or something. It was very strange. So I'm not sure what would cause that. But it is kind of like the paint doesn't want to dissolve sometimes, like in its binder. I don't know if there was like, I don't want to, you know, it almost seems like there's some sort of like, they have to do stuff to pigments to make it dissolve in water. It's almost like maybe that wasn't done enough. I don't know, but it's the same thing I noticed in the older Aquafine paints that I had. Now, Daler Rowney also makes artist quality paints. I have not used them, so I can't speak to those. But I can on the Aquafine because I've used the tubes and the pans now. All right, so while that's drying, let's move along. Let's do a little bit of red. We'll use our alizarin crimson. We'll do some of that on the raspberries. It's a pretty color. I wish it was more light fast. According to them, it's fairly light fast, but you have to take from any company. I feel like you have to look at the pigments and take their light fastness ratings with a grain of salt, which is kind of too bad because I'd love to just not bother checking things out myself and just go by what's on the label. Make that raspberry a little bit bigger. It's nice to make things bigger so you have a little more room to detail. Love the look of that paper. And actually I have to say that on this paper I am liking these paints better than on my cheaper student grade paper. So, you know, paper really does make a big difference when you're watercoloring. Oops, and I touched the background, so I'm getting a little bit of a smudge, so I'm going to blot that because I don't think that adds to my composition at all. We'll just give it a little time before that dries again. We can go in and add more later. Let's see. I think I can go in and do that leaf. I'm going to use some lemon yellow. And I'm just going to do along the edge, just get some. I think I should switch to a smaller brush too. Let's go. Well, I could use the one that came in the set. This is a number 4 round. It's a very useful brush, and I do like it. I think it was a good choice to put that, because a lot of times with your travel brushes that come with sets, like the Cotton one comes this really teeny tiny one, and I think this one is a little bit nicer. So getting in my bright colors, and I'm going to go in with a sap green. Their sap green is quite nice, actually. Kind of pull some of those strokes in. And something you could always do if you're considering this line of paint, if your local store stocks the tubes, you could try look at because like on the tubes, at least the tubes I have, which are older, they do list all the pigment information. So you can, you know, look at the tubes, buy a few tubes that have really trustworthy pigments, and try them out and see what you think. I want a little more shape on the edge of the leaf, so I'm just kind of tracing it, getting that slightly scalloped shape. Alright, that's kind of pretty. Now I am going to start putting some of the drizzly sauce around in here, and I'm going to use the crimson. These colors mix fine. As far as like learning color theory, I think you're going to be fine with this. That's something, you know, as a beginner, that's something you need to, it'd be very frustrating if you get paints and all you make is mud, and you're like, I'm mixing red and blue, why isn't this making purple? You know, you don't want that sort of frustration. It's not worth putting up with paints that give you that frustration, but I feel like that you can mix paints just fine with this. So I don't think that's a reason not to get them. I think you can paint with these just fine. I just think, you know, there are probably some better, well, I know there are definitely some better choices if you have them available. I feel like I need to be so political because I never want to, like, I don't know, I don't want anyone to feel bad if they have these paints, and I don't want them to think, well, they're not worth using because Lindsay says blah, blah, blah. Use whatever you have. I think the paint is only a small variable in the equation of how well you paint. And I know I'm in a minority. I know a lot of artists like to blame the materials, but you know what? You could go burn sticks of branches. Go burn some branches, make some charcoal, make some beautiful artwork that way. My kale juice is making me froggy. I almost dipped my brush in my kale juice. You want to see how gross this looks? Look at that. That's my juice. Oh my gosh. Too much kale. Too much kale. Now, I think I want to make sure I leave some, you know, white bits and shinies and stuff in here. And so I am just kind of skipping around some areas as I paint in. So it'll get kind of like a glossy, oops, I went on top of my leaf. So I'll get some glossiness. And I gotta be careful, I'm losing the edge of my raspberry there. Let me see if I can lift that off my leaf while I'm at it. A little bit better. These paints lift fine. Most student grade paints do lift just fine. And now I think I will work on some of the drizzle up here. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of the of this, what is this one called? This is, whoops, I just started playing my show. Vermilion. I'm gonna add, you know what, no, I'm gonna add a little Scarlet Lake. I think that's gonna be a little bit nicer. And crimson. So, and a little bit of water too, so I get a little bit lighter of a color up here. And that's alright if that kind of is a little juicy and goes up over the edge, because there would be little bits of berries and stuff in that glaze, and I think that looks just fine. I'm going to try to make sure I don't paint on top of my leaves. You can always get darker. A little kind of natural. You don't want to look too fussy. You know, somebody just scooped a bunch of syrup on there and just letting it drizzle down. I like this brush an awful lot. I would consider getting some of their other Aquafine brushes. They're like a golden Taklon, but they're not bad. I like the quality of them. They have a nice sharp point. I feel like they'd be very durable. They're certainly good for student grade paints because they allow you to really get the paint out of the pan. Sometimes if you're using a brush that's too soft, it doesn't want to let you do that. Now I'm going in with just the crimson, and I'm actually going to dab in, and you can see how there's not a lot of flow with this paint, but I'm going to use that to my advantage and kind of make it look like I've got little seeds of raspberry seeds in there. And then I can go ahead and add some of that to this raspberry. I'm going to do dabs just so it looks like you can see the texture of all those little seeds on the raspberry. And then if a little bit of light shows through, that's good. That'll give me a more natural look. And I can do the same over here. I'm not going for an ultra realistic painting here. I'm going to do some blue, some ultramarine blue and some crimson. I could see how my paints are wearing down already. I've only been using them today, and I am noticing that they are wearing down. So I don't know how long this set would last you, but at least, you know, if you finished up a color, you could squirt out, like maybe try the Daler Rowney Artist Grade if you like that brand, if that brand is easy for you to find. I've heard good things about that. Or whatever brand that you want to use, you could always squirt that in there and you know, and keep on using what you have for the other paints and kind of upgrade that way, because it's a lot less expensive than trying to go with all artist paints from the start. I don't know how much I'll honestly use this. I'll probably put it in my supplies that I teach with, because this would be really good for pen and ink and wash, or, you know, techniques like that where I don't need to have like really high-end watercolors to teach the same thing. Okay, now I'm thinking that I see a little like reflection on the pastry there, so I'm just getting some watery color, and I'm just kind of dragging up some reflections. And I think I want a little bit more on this side too, because there's like some sauce that's kind of really thin that dragged down, it looked like. And I want to make a little shadow for that, a warm shadow. I'm just going to pop this right out. Let me give myself a little more room. I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber and the yellow ochre. Maybe just a smidge more. Really water that down. And add some of that in here too. Sometimes if you're doing something that's really light, you have to kind of push your colors a bit to make them stand out enough to show up in your painting. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. Like an urge to sneeze. So if the camera pauses, it like stops automatically. It's probably because I sneezed and I just decided to pause it so you didn't hear me sneeze. Of course, now what's the point? Because I've just told you that I was going to do that, so. Alright, let's get our other leaves up there. And, oh, let's get a little bit, maybe a little bit more of that over here. Let's see, for our leaves, we started off with that lemon yellow, so we're going to do that. Do a little over here. And we're going to grab some of the sap green. If you get this set, I do recommend reordering the colors so that they do go in the color wheel. It's just switching the orders around of the blue and switching the two greens around. That pretty much does it. Because you want your colors. And the cobalt blue and ultramarine, when you paint them out, they are they're so very similar. And they actually are the same pigments in them. I feel like there's no white listed on the cobalt, but I almost feel like it's just the same with a little white added, which is what the cerulean is. So so that's a little disappointing to have like three colors. I would much rather have the ultramarine pigment on its own and the phthalo blue on its own. You know, it's like that makes way more sense to me than to have three different colors that are made out of, you know, that are made out of the same colors. It'd make so much more sense to have the pure pigments and then mix it however you want, because you have a white there if you want to use white. So it just makes sense to me. So now I want, I'm going to mix a little more of that gray, which we did with the cerulean and the burnt umber. More water in there. And I'm going to put some of this down here. This is way too light in here. This also looks way too brown. Lift a little bit of that up. I'm splattering, and I don't even mean to splatter today. Just dropping stuff here. I'm going to turn this around because I feel like if I turn it, I can get a little bit better control. That's more blue. That might work if I put it elsewhere in the picture. Hopefully I haven't been sticking my head in the frame. I feel like I'm leaning over this an awful lot. And then I can get some of the, just kind of freehand a little of the detail on the plate. That looks kind of dark, but I'm going to give it a second and look at it, because it might not be. It might be fine. And actually, as a benefit of smudging that bit of blotting over there where I got too far in with my color, it actually puts a little out of focus, which is kind of nice because that is out of focus on the in my reference photo. So I think you'll also probably need to, I'm trying to think how many colors I've used so far. I think you need to use a few more colors when using this, just because the set, how the colors are that are in the set are there's so many mixed pigments already that you have to be careful that you don't make mud if you mix. Oh, I had some mixed over there. I'm going to use that space right there. So keep that in mind if you have this set and you're using it. If you have it, use it. There's nothing wrong with these paints, but if you are in the market, I think that I would recommend getting a few tubes that are tried and true pigments and not getting this set. I mean, it's a cute set. I like the box and everything. It's a cute box, but I think you could do better to get some individual pigments. You don't need 18 colors. Like I said, though, I mean, I paid 16 bucks for this. It's not like it was crazy expensive. It's not like I feel like I wasted a ton of money. I feel like they were priced pretty well. I've seen this set though online for like $45, so don't pay that much. That's kind of crazy. I think they might have put the wrong price, thinking it was the artist line and not the Aquafine. I'm not sure, but oh, that's coming along. It's not too bad. It's getting there, as we say up here. That's getting there. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt umber, and I'm going to get some of my little planks in. I'm not going to do too much with that. I don't want to really make the table the focal point, but I do want it to kind of add to the whole thing. Give it a little shadow. Like I said, and I'm going to say it again, I like this brush. I would definitely buy more Aquafine brushes. And I do like this paint a lot more on nicer paper. So I will say that as well. I was just using some Fabriano Studio for those two little, where'd they go? Actually, well, I think they're cute. I mean, this is just like Fabriano Studio paper. I feel like I'm slurring today. Sorry about that, guys. But, you know, just tell it like it is. I know I'm using the edge of this brush to drag paint over, and I'm capitalizing on the texture that this paper has to give me some really cool effects. I'd like a bigger mixing area, I have to say. I definitely need to spray paint that lid so I have that bigger mixing area. That would make the set so much better. In fact, if anybody from Daler Rowney is watching this, make the lid, spray paint the lid of that so we can use that as a palette, because it's just wasted space otherwise. I would trade you the printed transparency thing for because that's going to cost money to have that printed. I would much rather have a white mixing lid. I think that the little one, the 10 set of 10, that is cheaper, I think that probably has a white top. If anybody has that, if they could let me know if the white one has if the little square one has a white mixing area on the lid, that would be good to know. Because I'd probably recommend that one over this if you want to buy some. Alright, I'm going to pull some of that grain. You could use actually a fan brush would work really well for this. I actually have one right there. I might get into it. I'm just going to get the edges with this brush though, just so I can keep them kind of sharp. Oh, let's try to keep our lines in agreement with one another. I mean, it's not like I really took much time sketching this out either, so if it's a little off, I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. Let's get that line in there a little bit and get that edge. Can you see that? Just getting that edge. It's just background, guys. It's meant to be in the background. I didn't need a fan brush after all. Okay. And whoop, maybe just a little bit more burnt umber. I feel like I'm using a lot, like I have to go back in and grab a lot of paint. So, so you might use that up fairly quickly, but you know what? I think it's good to use up paint because then it gives you the courage to try something different. And plus, if you're using up your paint, that means you're painting, and that's just an awesome thing anyway. But I think it's a kind of a bit of an accomplishment feeling that you get. I mean, obviously it means you have to buy more paint, so it's not exactly good for the wallet, but I think it really, you know, you kind of know you've earned it because you have spent the time, you've put in the practice. Sorry about that. I don't know why the water pump is going off, but alright, so what I'm going to do is pause it, let that water pump finish its thing, dry this, and we will put our finishing touches on. Okay, so while the pump was going, I just went ahead and dried everything, and I thought I would go ahead and take a white gel pen, because I did miss the highlights on my raspberry here, and I decided I would just kind of go and sketch them in. Just kind of give it a little bit of distinction, and I thought since I've done that to that one, I would come up here and do it to this one as well. Some people are very against using a gel pen, and you know, this isn't going to go in competition anywhere. This is just me having fun, so I'm using a gel pen. So don't, you know, just keep that in mind if you're doing artwork that's going to be maybe in a competition. You don't skip the gel pen. But I just love it for adding these shiny details. You know, you can really get that, especially on the red, any of those little seeds that you dabbed on with a crimson, you can go ahead and put them in. Now it's nice that I didn't have to do too much of that over there because I was able to leave enough white, but you know, that's not always what happens. Sometimes we decide we want to put it in after the fact, and that's how it goes. Now look how shiny that is compared to the rest of this here. I might kind of shape a little of these shines, give it kind of like a higher shine. It's kind of just like the icing on the cupcake, so to speak. It just gives it a little bit more sparkle. And any little seeds over here, I'm going to put a few shines in. And you could even do some highlights on the plate if you want to. If you have an edge that you feel really should be crisp and it's maybe a little soft, you can do that. But I wouldn't get too worried about it. I mean, have fun with this. So now I want a little bit more shadow on the leaves up there. So I've got I'm just going to try, I think I'll do the crimson, the sap green with a little bit of crimson to darken it. Gotta find a clean enough spot to mix on. Be great to have a lid to mix it on, wouldn't it? Because I keep getting into other mud here. Let's try that. I should have not used, well, I don't know. I was thinking I should have used a different blue instead of that cerulean, but whatever. We'll be fine. I don't really want to introduce a new blue at this point of the game because I don't want to have to add it to everything. I do like the sap green. Sap green, that's kind of one of those like colors that I'll judge paints on. It's like, well, how is your sap green? Oh, it's delightful. You just got an extra point, in my opinion, right? In my opinion. Who cares? Nobody cares about my opinion, but having a good sap green gets you points with me. Okay, now let's do a little crimson on its own. I love the I love alizarin crimson. It's one of those colors I happen to really like. I've always loved it. I love that, and Crimson Lake since I was a kid. My first set of watercolors were the Marie's Chinese watercolors, and that's what I learned on. And Crimson Lake was my favorite color. And the first professional, like Winsor Newton artist grade paint I bought, ridiculously expensive, of course, from a little art shop, was Crimson Lake. And I just love that color. Red's my favorite color anyway, but there's just something about crimson, how bright and pure and beautiful it is. It's always been my favorite color, and so I was just delighted to use it. I wish it was more permanent. So even though this gives it, and maybe, you know, because it has a :1 after it, it's PR 83:1. Maybe the :1 means it's has some magical properties added to it. I don't know, but this will probably go in the sketchbook because I'm not sure if it will fade on me. Then again, it's not like this isn't destined for greatness or anything. I'm just screwing around and painting. It's not like it has to last forever. I mean, who do I think I am, the Queen of England? I mean, it's fine. It can you can paint just for the joy of painting, but I always feel like I need to disclaim my reviews just because I don't want to make anybody feel bad if they have this paint. I don't want to harm somebody's business. But I do want to give you the straight deal, what I think the straight deal is on paints. I mean, this is pretty. I'm having fun using it. I mean, those are two very important factors with what paint you choose to buy, I think. And I think it's worth every penny I paid for it. I wouldn't go spend a lot of money on it, but get a good deal. Why not? It's fun. Might not be fine art, but it sure is fun art. Hope you enjoyed this review and you found it helpful. Sorry it was so long. I didn't intend for the review and demo to be this long, but hopefully you could glean some information from it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and if you're not already a subscriber and you're still here, holy cow, that's pretty impressive. Please hit that subscribe button, because if you've been here this long, then you're probably like the other things on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.